Imagine a world unseen by the naked eye, a microscopic metropolis teeming with life. Suddenly the sirens wail, antibiotic pills colossal and terrifying rain down. They fall like bombs from an angry sky. Most bacteria scream in theatrical silent horror. They perish in their trillions, a swift chemical apocalypse. But wait, one twitches, it changes, it adapts. Armor, gleaming and new, encases its tiny form. This is not just survival, this is defiance. Meet the star of our show, a notorious character in the microbial underworld. Back in 1941, penicillin was its kryptonite. A few doses and would crumble in mere hours. Doctors hailed a new age of medical miracles. Infections that once killed were reduced to minor inconveniences, but today, merely chuckles. It scoffs at our most potent chemical weapons. It has learned. It has evolved. It has outplayed us. It is a veteran of a war we thought we had won. So what are these microscopic Machiavellis? We call them superbugs. Not because they wear capes or leap tall buildings, though in their own way, they are fantastically powerful. These are bacteria that have undergone an evolutionary boot camp. They have been pushed to their limits by our medicines, and they have emerged stronger, tougher, and far more dangerous. They are the escape artists of the cellular world. They are nature's ultimate survivors, and they are winning. This is the story of their ascent. The scale of this quiet conquest is staggering. Imagine a map, not of countries, but of infections. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, has such maps. They show antibiotic-resistant bacteria spreading across the globe. Red alerts bloom like malevolent flowers, city by city, continent by continent. It's less like a traditional war, more like a zombie outbreak. An invisible enemy, relentlessly advancing, turning our havens into hazards. Hospitals, the very places of healing, become dangerous frontiers. This is not fiction. This is the silent, creeping pandemic. The rise of these superbugs is a masterclass in evolution. Bacteria are ancient life forms, Earth's original inhabitants. They have been honing their survival skills for billions of years. Their secret weapon? Speed and relentless adaptation. While humans reproduce over decades, bacteria can divide every 20 minutes. Each division is a lottery ticket for a new mutation, a chance to stumble upon a defense against our drugs. It's a numbers game, and they have a colossal advantage. They are not just single entities, they are a collective learning organism, a global network of shared intelligence. This isn't a tale of sudden villainy. Bacteria aren't inherently malicious, seeking to cause us harm. They are simply trying to survive just like any other life form. Their triumph is a direct consequence of an evolutionary arms race, an arms race that we, humanity, inadvertently initiated. We fired the first shots with the discovery of antibiotics. For a while we were overwhelmingly superior in our firepower, but the enemy was learning, adapting, and sharing its secrets. Now they are outsmarting modern medicine at an alarming rate. Their resilience is a testament to nature's ingenuity. Our own actions have fueled their ascent. We became complacent, perhaps even arrogant, with our miracle cures. The discovery of penicillin was a watershed moment, true. It promised a future free from the fear of bacterial infection. But this miracle was swiftly followed by widespread, often careless use. We treated antibiotics like a panacea, a cure-all for every ailment. From life-threatening infections to common colds, the pills flowed freely. This constant exposure was the perfect training ground for bacteria. We inadvertently created the selection pressure for resistance. We were, in essence, teaching them how to defeat us. The stakes in this microscopic war are unimaginably high. This is not merely an academic curiosity for scientists. The emergence of superbugs threatens the very foundations of modern medicine. Procedures we take for granted could become deadly gambles. Routine surgeries, cancer chemotherapy, organ transplants, all rely on our ability to control and prevent bacterial infections. If our antibiotics fail, we risk being thrown back into a darker age, an age where a simple scratch could prove fatal. The fight against superbugs is a fight for our future health. It is a battle we simply cannot afford to lose. These superbugs are not some distant, hypothetical threat. They are not confined to the pages of science fiction novels. They are here, now, lurking in our hospitals, our communities, our environment. They are an invisible enemy, yet their impact is devastatingly visible. Patients battling infections that defy treatment, doctors facing impossible choices with dwindling options, families grieving loved ones lost to once treatable illnesses. This microscopic menace casts a long, dark shadow. The threat is real, it is growing, and it demands our urgent attention. We are witnessing a slow-motion crisis unfold before our eyes. Their victory is not measured in territory gained on a map. It is tallied in human lives and escalating healthcare costs. It is seen in the quiet despair of overwhelmed medical staff. Superbugs are winning when common infections become life-threatening. They triumph when our last lines of defense begin to crumble. The World Health Organization warns of a post-antibiotic era. An era where the medicines that revolutionized healthcare no longer work. This is not hyperbole. It is a sober assessment of our current trajectory. The evidence is mounting, and the trend lines are deeply troubling. The bacterial empire is striking back with a vengeance. This essay will embark on a journey into the heart of this crisis. We will delve into the fascinating and often frightening world of bacteria. We will explore how these tiny organisms achieved their evolutionary triumph, uncovering the history of antibiotic discovery and our subsequent missteps, examining the ingenious ways bacteria share their resistance genes, like microscopic spies trading classified information in the dead of night. We will confront the terrifying realities of a world without effective antibiotics. But crucially, we will also shine a light on the path forward, exploring the innovative solutions and the heroes fighting back. This is a story of challenge, but also one of hope. Our narrative begins with a miracle, a seeming gift from the gods of science. The accidental discovery of penicillin by Alexander Fleming, a discovery that promised to conquer infectious diseases forever. It ushered in an age of unprecedented medical advancement. Surgery became safer, childbirth less perilous, and lives were extended. This golden age of antibiotics, however, was tragically short-lived. Our wonder drugs became victims of their own success. And the bacteria, those ancient, adaptable survivors, began to learn. They began to fight back, setting the stage for the Superbug saga. The battle lines were drawn, though we were slow to realize it. Our story of this great bacterial rebellion begins not with a bang, but with a bit of forgotten fungus. Picture London, 1928, St. Mary's Hospital. Dr. Alexander Fleming, a bacteriologist known for his brilliant mind but somewhat chaotic laboratory habits, returns from holiday. Before leaving, he had stacked numerous petri dishes containing bacteria to one side of his bench. Upon his return, he noticed something peculiar on one dish. A blue-green mold, a common household pest, had contaminated it. But this was no ordinary contamination. It was a sign, a game-changing, world-altering sign. This speck of was doing something extraordinary. Around the invading mold, there was a clear ring, a distinct zone where the formidable Staphylococcus simply refused to grow. It was as if the mold exuded an invisible shield, a chemical keep-out sign for the bacteria. Fleming, ever the observant scientist, was intrigued. He realized this was not just moldy bread science, this was something far more profound. He famously remarked, "That's funny, funny indeed." Hilariously important for the future of humankind, as it turned out. The mold was actively killing the bacteria, a killer mold. Fleming wasn't the first to see mold inhibit bacteria. French medical student Ernest Duchesne had noted it decades earlier, but his work was tragically ignored. This time, however, the observation stuck. Fleming cultivated the mold, extracting its bacteria-killing broth. He named the active substance penicillin. He found it was non-toxic to animal cells, but lethal to many disease-causing bacteria. The potential was immense, a way to fight infections from within without harming the patient. Imagine a world where deadly diseases could be vanquished by a substance from a humble fungus. It sounded like pure alchemy. Yet, turning this laboratory curiosity into a practical medicine proved fiendishly difficult. Penicillin was unstable and hard to produce in large quantities. Fleming published his findings in 1929, but the scientific community, astonishingly, showed little enthusiasm. For nearly a decade, the miracle molecule remained largely a laboratory footnote. A fascinating observation, perhaps, but not yet a revolution. The world, blissfully unaware, continued to suffer the ravages of bacterial infections. The stage was set, the discovery made, but the hero of our story was still waiting in the wings, needing a different kind of crisis to truly emerge. The looming shadow of global conflict would finally thrust penicillin into the spotlight. As the 1930s drew to a close and war drums beat across Europe, a team at Oxford University picked up Fleming's research. Howard Florey, Ernst Chain, and Norman Heatley were determined to isolate and purify penicillin. They saw its potential not just as a scientific puzzle, but as a desperately needed medical tool. Their task was monumental. They started with meager resources, famously using bedpans and milk churns as makeshift fermentation vessels. It was a race against time, driven by the grim necessity of impending war. The initial results were nothing short of miraculous. In 1941, they treated their first human patient, Albert Alexander, a policeman dying from a severe staphylococcal and streptococcal infection. A simple scratch from a rose thorn had led to a horrifying widespread sepsis. Penicillin was administered. Albert's condition improved dramatically, almost overnight. Hope flared, but their supplies were painfully limited. They even resorted to recycling penicillin from the patient's urine. Tragically, they ran out before the infection was fully conquered, and Albert relapsed and died. Yet, the proof of concept was undeniable. Penicillin worked. It was a lifesaver. With Britain under siege, mass production was impossible. So, in 1941, Florey and Heatley traveled to the United States, carrying their precious mold spores. They appealed to American pharmaceutical companies and the U.S. government. The Pearl Harbor attack galvanized efforts. Penicillin became a strategic priority. American ingenuity and industrial might were unleashed. New fermentation techniques were developed. Corn steep liquor, a byproduct of starch production, proved to be an excellent growth medium. By 1944, D-Day, enough penicillin was being produced to treat all Allied casualties. It was a medical game-changer on the battlefield. Soldiers who would have certainly died from infected wounds were saved. Amputations were prevented. The impact was profound, almost biblical. Pneumonia, sepsis, gangrene diseases that had haunted battlefields for centuries suddenly lost much of their terror. Penicillin was hailed as a wonder drug, a true miracle of modern science. Its success cemented the age of antibiotics. The world marveled. It seemed humanity had finally gained the upper hand against its oldest microbial foes. The optimism was boundless. Surely this was the beginning of the end for bacterial disease. Or so we thought. The bacteria, however, were just getting started with their own war effort. The triumphant return of soldiers, saved by the new wonder drug, fueled an insatiable public appetite for penicillin. What had been a precious military resource quickly became a civilian panacea. The post-war years saw an explosion in antibiotic production and use. Doctors, armed with this powerful new weapon, prescribed it liberally. Strep throat, penicillin, ear infection, penicillin, a nasty cough, even if viral. Here, have some penicillin just in case. It was seen as a cure-all, a silver bullet for almost any ailment that caused a fever or a sniffle. The caution that Fleming himself had voiced was largely drowned out by the chorus of success. This euphoria wasn't confined to human medicine. Someone had a bright idea. What if antibiotics could make farm animals grow faster and protect them from infections in crowded factory farm conditions? Lo and behold, it worked, or seemed to. Adding low doses of antibiotics to animal feed became standard practice in agriculture. Chickens plumped up quicker. Pigs reached market weight sooner. It was an economic boon for farmers. The global food supply chain became increasingly reliant on these drugs, not just for treating sickness but for routine growth promotion and disease prevention. More meat, faster, cheaper. What could possibly go wrong? The pharmaceutical industry, smelling immense profits, jumped into the antibiotic discovery gold rush. Streptomycin, effective against tuberculosis, was found in 1943. Chloramphenicol and tetracycline followed in the late 1940s. The 1950s brought erythromycin and vancomycin. It felt like an endless conveyor belt of microbial magic. Each new discovery reinforced the notion that humanity was firmly in control. If one antibiotic faltered, another would surely take its place. We were clever, we were innovative. The bacteria, ancient and seemingly simple, were surely no match for our scientific prowess. We had conquered them. This period, often called the Golden Age of antibiotics, was built on a foundation of spectacular success. Yet beneath the surface, the seeds of our future predicament were being sown. Every dose prescribed for a cold, every antibiotic-laced animal feed, every unfinished course of treatment was a lesson for the bacteria. It was evolutionary pressure on an unprecedented scale. We were, in effect, running a global experiment in accelerated bacterial evolution. The bacteria, silent and unseen, were attending our masterclass in survival. They were learning to dodge our chemical bullets, one mutation, one shared gene at a time. The heist was already in motion. Amidst the triumphant celebrations, Alexander Fleming sounded a note of caution in his 1945 Nobel Prize acceptance speech. He warned that misuse of penicillin could lead to resistant microbes. His prophecy was chillingly accurate. By the late 1940s, hospitals reported infections resistant to penicillin. These bacteria had learned to produce penicillinase, an enzyme that rendered penicillin useless. The microscopic arms race had begun. The pharmaceutical industry responded by developing new antibiotics. Methicillin, introduced in 1959, was designed to resist penicillinase. But by 1961, methicillin-resistant MRSA emerged. Each new drug became a puzzle for bacteria to solve. This burgeoning problem of resistance was noted in scientific circles but lacked public urgency. The pipeline of new drugs, though slowing, still seemed to offer solutions. There was a pervasive sense of optimism, a belief that human ingenuity would always stay one step ahead. This complacency was dangerous. We underestimated our adversary and the speed of bacterial evolution. The wonder drugs were starting to lose their wonder. The consequences would be severe. The party was in full swing, but the bill was slowly, inexorably being tallied. How does a humble bacterium become a supervillain? It often starts with a tiny accident in its genetic code. Bacteria reproduce at astonishing speeds, creating billions of offspring in a single day. With each division comes the chance of a mutation. Most mutations are useless, but occasionally one confers the ability to withstand an antibiotic. This accidental superpower might alter the bacterium's cell wall, or develop an efflux pump to spit out the antibiotic. Some bacteria produce enzymes that chop up the antibiotic molecule. When an antibiotic is introduced, most bacteria perish. But a few with lucky mutations survive and multiply. They pass on their resistance trait to all their descendants. This is natural selection in fast forward. A single infection might involve billions of bacteria. Even if the chance of a resistance-conferring mutation is 1 in a million, a resistant mutant will arise. Our use of antibiotics actively selects for it. Each dose of antibiotics acts as a sieve, filtering out the weak and leaving behind the strong. We thought we were carpet bombing them into oblivion. Instead, we were running an efficient training program for the ultimate bacterial SAS. The bacteria evolve rapidly, and our use of antibiotics accelerates this process. We are, in essence, the architects of their evolution. The stakes are high and the consequences are dire. Bacteria have a biological internet, a way of sharing genetic secrets across species. This is known as horizontal gene transfer. One method is conjugation, where one bacterium transfers a plasmid with a resistance gene to another. The recipient bacterium becomes instantly resistant. Another method is transformation, where bacteria scavenge DNA fragments from dead bacteria and incorporate them into their genome. If those fragments contain resistance genes, another superbug is born. Finally, there's transduction, where bacteriophages transfer resistance genes between bacteria. This ability to share genes means a resistance trait in one bacterium can spread to others. The bacteria evolve as a collective, a global network of shared genetic innovation. Our one drug, one bug approach looks quaint against this sophisticated web of microbial resistance. They are crowdsourcing their way to invincibility. The implications are terrifying for our antibiotic arsenal. The bacteria aren't just evolving individually, they are evolving as a collective. This interconnected web of resistance is a game changer. We are facing a sophisticated, interconnected enemy. The stakes could not be higher. The consequences of bacterial evolution manifest as real-world monsters. Take methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA. First appearing in 1961, MRSA quickly became a global scourge. It causes skin infections, pneumonia, and bloodstream infections. Once confined to hospitals, it now lurks in gyms, schools, and homes. Then there is Clostridioides difficile, C. diff, a fiend in healthcare settings. Broad-spectrum antibiotics wipe out beneficial gut bacteria, allowing C. diff to overgrow and release toxins. Treating C. diff infections is challenging, especially as resistant strains become more common. The discovery of the MCR1 gene in 2015, initially on pig farms in China, was alarming. This gene confers resistance to colistin, a last-resort antibiotic. Its spread to human pathogens signals a terrifying prospect: bacteria resistant to virtually all known antibiotics. The rogues gallery of superbugs is constantly expanding. Vancomycin-resistant Enterococci, VRE, carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae, CRE, And drug-resistant Neisseria gonorrhoeae are just a few examples. Each represents a failure of our existing treatments and a monumental challenge for public health. These are not just bugs, they are evolving terrorists, holding modern medicine hostage. Their rise is a stark testament to the power of evolution. The consequences are severe, the stakes could not be higher. The bacterial villains evolve with dizzying speed. You would imagine our pharmaceutical companies would be churning out new antibiotics at an equally frantic pace. But the reality is starkly different. The pipeline of new antibiotics has run almost completely dry. It's a crisis of innovation, a catastrophic market failure. Shelves once bustling with antibiotic research projects now stand eerily quiet. Why this desertion? The answer often boils down to economics. Antibiotics are victims of their own success. Unlike drugs for chronic conditions, antibiotics are used for short courses. Developing a new drug is expensive and lengthy. Pharmaceutical companies need to recoup these investments. Antibiotics don't offer substantial returns, so Big Pharma has largely abandoned the field. Since the 1980s, only 2 genuinely new classes of antibiotics have reached patients. This dry pipeline is a gaping wound in our global health security. We are facing an ever-smarter enemy with an increasingly depleted armory. The few new antibiotics that do emerge are often derivatives of existing classes. The stakes could not be higher. The consequences of this failing pipeline and rampant resistance are measured in human lives. The World Health Organization projects that by 2050, superbug infections could kill an estimated 10 million people every year. That is more deaths than are currently caused by cancer. This is not a distant dystopian fantasy. It is a credible forecast of our potential near future. Imagine a world where a simple scratch becomes a death sentence. Picture a routine surgery leading to an untreatable infection. Think about a child falling and a minor injury spiraling into a life-or-death battle. This is the grim reality the 10 million deaths figure represents. It is a return to an era where infections were the primary killers of humanity. This isn't just about mortality, it's also about morbidity. For every death, many more will endure debilitating infections. The economic costs will be staggering. The burden will fall disproportionately on the most vulnerable. This is a global crisis that respects no borders. We are losing the ability to treat common infections. The bacteria are out-evolving us. The 10 million deaths are not an inevitability, but they are the trajectory we are on unless we drastically change course. The clock is ticking, and the stakes could not be higher. The horror of antibiotic resistance extends far beyond the inability to treat straightforward infections. It strikes at the very heart of modern medicine, threatening to unravel decades of progress. So many medical marvels we now take for granted rely on a hidden safety net: effective antibiotics. Without them, the risk of infection during or after procedures becomes unacceptably high. The entire edifice of contemporary healthcare begins to wobble, threatening to collapse. This is not just about losing a few drugs, it's about losing the ability to perform countless life-saving interventions safely. A truly chilling thought for anyone who might ever need a doctor. Consider surgery. From routine appendectomies and cesarean sections to complex organ transplants and heart bypasses, all these procedures carry a risk of bacterial infection. Antibiotics are given prophylactically as a preventative measure to keep these opportunistic invaders at bay. If our antibiotics fail, surgeons will face an impossible choice: operate and risk a deadly, untreatable infection, or don't operate and let the underlying condition take its course. Imagine a surgeon, sweat beading on their brow, not from the complexity of the operation but from the terrifying knowledge that their patient's incision is oozing green, and no drug in their arsenal can stop it. It's not just surgery. Cancer chemotherapy, a cornerstone of modern oncology, often severely weakens a patient's immune system, leaving them highly susceptible to infections. Antibiotics are crucial for protecting these vulnerable individuals. Without effective antibiotics, the risk of dying from an infection during chemo might outweigh the potential benefits of the cancer treatment itself. Similarly, patients with kidney failure relying on dialysis, people with autoimmune diseases on immunosuppressants, or premature babies in neonatal intensive care units all depend heavily on our ability to control bacterial threats. Their lives hang in the balance. The post-antibiotic era is not a catchy phrase. It's a description of a medical dark age. It means the common C-section, which has made childbirth dramatically safer for millions of women, could become a high-risk gamble. It means joint replacements, which restore mobility and quality of life, might be too dangerous to undertake. Even minor dental procedures could carry lethal risks. The achievements of 20th century medicine, built upon the bedrock of infection control, are directly threatened. We are talking about a fundamental regression, a return to a time when doctors could offer little more than comfort in the face of overwhelming infection. Rewind to a darker age life without cures. The specter of this post-antibiotic era conjures up images of a bygone time, a sort of medieval times 2.0, but with smartphones and social media to document our collective decline. Before antibiotics, life expectancy was significantly shorter. Commonplace infections were frequent killers. Childbirth was perilous for both mother and child. Pneumonia was grimly referred to as the old man's friend because it often carried off the elderly. This isn't ancient history, it's the reality our great-grandparents faced. And it's a reality we are now, shockingly, drifting back towards. The triumphs of the past century are proving to be alarmingly fragile. Imagine everyday life in such a world. A simple cut from preparing dinner, a child's scraped knee from playing outside, a common sore throat, all could become sources of profound anxiety, potentially leading to life-threatening sepsis. The fear of infection would permeate every aspect of our existence. Hospitals, far from being places of healing, could transform into dangerous reservoirs of untreatable bacteria, places to be avoided at all costs. The very foundations of public health, built on sanitation and the ability to treat infectious outbreaks, would be critically undermined. This is not just a medical crisis, it's a societal one. The psychological toll would be immense. The trust we place in medicine, in our ability to overcome illness, would be shattered. The carefree attitude with which we approach minor injuries would vanish, replaced by a constant gnawing worry. Simple pleasures, like gardening or playing sports, would carry new, unspoken risks. International travel could become a far more hazardous affair, with the threat of acquiring a resistant infection in another country, or bringing one home. The world would, in many ways, shrink as the fear of the microscopic unknown expands. It would fundamentally alter our relationship with each other and with the environment. This regression is not merely about medical procedures, it's about the fabric of society. The economic impact of widespread, untreatable infections would be devastating, far beyond just healthcare costs. Productivity would plummet as people fall ill or care for sick relatives. Agriculture could be ravaged if animal infections also become untreatable without the crutch of antibiotics. The interconnectedness of our globalized world, which facilitates the rapid spread of resistant bacteria, would become a terrifying vulnerability. We are quite simply unprepared for a world where our magic bullets no longer fire. The silence from the empty antibiotic pipeline is deafening. But hold on, the story of superbugs is not all doom and gloom. Humanity is not defenseless, our scientists are fighting back. And some of our most promising allies are, rather surprisingly, viruses. Yes, viruses. Not usually the heroes in a health crisis. Meet bacteriophages, or phages for short. These are nature's own bacteria hunters, evolved over millennia. They are microscopic predators, perfectly designed to infect and destroy bacteria. Forgotten by Western medicine for decades, they are now making a dramatic comeback. The enemy of our enemy is indeed our friend. This is their time to shine in our microbial war. How does this viral vengeance work? It's elegantly brutal. Imagine tiny, intricate biological missiles seeking their specific targets. A phage latches onto a bacterium like a lunar lander docking. It then injects its own genetic material inside the unsuspecting host. This genetic code hijacks the bacterium's machinery, forcing it to produce hundreds, even thousands of new phages. Finally, the bacterium bursts open, releasing the viral horde. These newly minted phages then hunt down more bacteria. It's a self-replicating, highly specific form of warfare, leaving our friendly gut bacteria largely untouched. Phage therapy is not a brand new concept, despite its recent buzz. It was widely used in parts of Eastern Europe, particularly Georgia, for much of the 20th century. While the West fell head over heels for antibiotics, these countries continued phage research. The arrival of penicillin and other miracle drugs simply overshadowed them elsewhere. But now, as our antibiotic arsenal dwindles and superbugs rampage, scientists are looking back. They are dusting off old research papers and exploring these living antibiotics. Desperate times are indeed calling for innovative, or rather rediscovered, measures. The forgotten remedies of the past might hold the key to our future. Sometimes to go forward, you must first look back. And the results? They are increasingly encouraging, offering tangible hope. There are compelling stories like that of a patient in 2019 dying from a superbug infection, all antibiotics having failed. As a last resort, doctors administered an experimental phage cocktail. The patient made a remarkable recovery, a life snatched from the brink. These are not just isolated anecdotes or laboratory curiosities anymore. Clinical trials are underway, exploring phages for various infections. Phages are delivering real results in real patients against real superbugs. So take that, microscopic marauders. A powerful ancient weapon is rejoining the fight. The phage renaissance is truly upon us. Beyond harnessing nature's existing predators, scientists are now becoming bioprogrammers. They are turning to cutting-edge genetic tools like CRISPR. You've likely heard of CRISPR in the context of editing human genes. But its power can also be turned against our bacterial foes. Imagine microscopic surgeons armed with incredibly precise molecular scalpels. These CRISPR systems can be programmed to find specific DNA sequences. They can then snip out the very genes that give bacteria their antibiotic resistance. It's like disarming a bomb by carefully cutting the correct wire. Suddenly the superbug's formidable armor crumbles. Resistance is futile might just get a whole new meaning. The potential applications of CRISPR in this fight are truly exciting. Scientists are exploring ways to deliver these gene-editing tools directly to bacteria, perhaps packaged within benign viruses or nanoparticles. One clever strategy involves using CRISPR to make bacteria vulnerable again, resensitizing them to older antibiotics that they had learned to shrug off. It would be like turning back the evolutionary clock on resistance. Imagine an old, once useless antibiotic suddenly becoming effective again. This could rejuvenate our failing drug pipeline almost overnight, undoing the damage caused by decades of antibiotic overuse. It's a high-tech counteroffensive at the most fundamental genetic level. But gene editing isn't our only hope for new weapons. The urgent need to refill that dry pipeline of antibiotics is spurring new discovery efforts. Researchers are now looking for novel compounds in unexpected places. Remember the story of Teixobactin, discovered in 2015? It was the first genuinely new class of antibiotic in nearly 30 years. And where did this groundbreaking molecule come from? Not from a high-tech synthesis lab initially, but from plain old dirt. A sample of soil from a field in Maine, USA. Mother Nature, it seems, still has plenty of tricks up her sleeve. We just need the ingenuity to find them. Teixobactin offered immense promise because it attacks bacteria in a novel way. It targets fundamental building blocks of the bacterial cell wall, making it exceptionally difficult for bacteria to evolve resistance to it. So far, resistance to Teixobactin has not been detected in laboratory studies. This discovery has galvanized the search for other unculturable bacteria. Microbes from soil, deep oceans, insect venoms, even the human microbiome itself. These are all potential sources of the next generation of antibiotic avengers. The challenge is immense, but the hunt is on with renewed vigor. Hope is being unearthed from the most unexpected corners of our planet. The fight is far from over. New heroes are emerging. The bacterial empire has indeed struck back with formidable force. These microscopic marauders, true masters of evolution, have often outplayed us. They have systematically learned to dismantle our miracle cures, turning many of our once life-saving drugs into mere historical footnotes. The threat, as we have explored, is not some distant science fiction nightmare. It is an immediate and present danger lurking within our hospitals. It festers in our communities, a silent, creeping siege upon our health. The stakes are catastrophically high, threatening the foundations of modern medicine. Yet this narrative does not and must not conclude with their triumph. Humanity, when faced with existential threats, possesses remarkable resilience. The fight back, this crucial counteroffensive, begins not solely in advanced laboratories. It begins with each of us. Yes, you are a vital soldier in this epic struggle. You are not a helpless bystander watching the microbial drama unfold. Your everyday actions, though they may seem small, forge a mighty shield. Wash your hands thoroughly and often. It sounds simple, yet it is a powerful weapon. Never pressure your doctor for antibiotics if they determine they are not necessary. Resist the outdated notion that every ailment requires a pill-based quick fix. Understand that these precious medicines are a finite, dwindling resource. Guard them fiercely, use them wisely, treat them like the crown jewels of medicine. This personal vigilance forms the very front line of our defense. Beyond our personal choices, the battle must escalate to the corridors of power. We must collectively demand stronger antibiotic stewardship laws from our governments. Insist upon robust policies that drastically curb the reckless overuse in agriculture. Call for sustained, significant global investment in new antibiotic research. We desperately need innovative economic models to break the pharmaceutical deadlock, to incentivize the development that has left our drug pipeline terrifyingly dry. International cooperation is not merely advisable, it is utterly essential now. Superbugs, those relentless global travelers, respect no national borders. They mock our political divisions and thrive on our lack of unified action. Our collective voice must be louder, more insistent, and absolutely unwavering. Bacteria have indeed dominated this planet for some 4 billion years. Their resilience is legendary, their adaptability almost boundless. They will outlive us. But their ancient lineage and their evolutionary prowess do not necessitate our defeat. They do not have to beat us in this critical, ongoing evolutionary arms race. The heroes, as we have seen, are fighting back with innovative strategies. Phage therapy, CRISPR gene editing, and newly discovered natural compounds offer hope. This is not a moment for despair, but for determined, intelligent action. The fight is incredibly challenging, but in many ways, it is just beginning anew. This is our crucial opportunity to turn the tide against these tiny terrors. Our counterattack starts now, armed with science, conviction, and collective will.